Can V2G earn you loads of money? Well, in case you're wondering what V2G is and can it earn you a fortune, the answers are the future, and spoiler alert, yes it can. I'm Dave, welcome to Dave Takes It On. V2G, or vehicle to grid, really is the future, and it's actually here today. But before you dash out and buy up all the cheap Nissan Leafs available for just a couple of grand, there are limits and conditions. Well, I actually have a portable battery pack that I carry around while I'm filming or when I'm out on a picnic or out at the beach. It can power or recharge all devices really quickly all day long. In a full-on power cut, it can actually also run my house. And many people now have permanent home battery packs like the Tesla Powerwall or Powervault or similar. These were originally designed to be used with solar PV panels, so if you're not using your power during the day, say you're out at work, and you do use it in the evening when you get back home, and the PV panels have stopped, so a battery pack or two will store it during the day, and you can then use it at night. Plus, in a power cut, they can actually run you home from the battery pack for anything up to, well, a few days. Well, it's absolutely ideal, but what if you haven't got any solar panels? Well, some bright spark discovered that if you switch to a cheap overnight tariff for an EV, whether or not you actually have one, then you can charge the batteries up overnight on as little as 7p per kilowatt hour, and then run your house from the battery during the day when the standard variable tariff is around 27p. In other words, doing this could save you 75% of your total electricity bill throughout the year, even if you have no solar PV panels. Now, if you have solar PV panels, you can save considerably more because your PV will charge the battery during the day while you're out at work, so you may have no need to buy even the cheap rate electricity overnight. In the brighter months, probably from around about April through to October, many people run almost entirely off-grid, using their solar panels and the battery alone. And that means yearly electricity bills of less than £100. But that's all to do with saving money, not earning it. So where does the loads of money come in? Okay, you need to follow along with this. The National Grid buys electricity from generators. And if you have PV panels, you yourself become a generator. The grid will buy off you the excess electricity you generate but don't use. Well, in the early days, 2012, 2013, PV panels, this was around 20p per kilowatt hour for export, but it was also tied to the rate of inflation and guaranteed for a period of 25 years. Well, those people today will be earning a fortune from their exports alone. So a decade ago, ordinary people got paid for generating electricity for the grid. But it certainly wasn't an income, more really just a really decent return on their investment. Well, today many of those people are now EV owners, and they're charging their EVs from the power produced by their solar panels, and they're still getting their income. That's a win-win. So effectively they get free EV charging. Still, it's only a saving, so where's the income come in? Okay, a typical home battery is around 10 to 15 kilowatt hours, and the average house uses 5 to 10 kilowatt hours. So there's not a lot spare. But then you have to realise that there's an EV set outside much of the time that has a battery with around 75 kilowatt hours in it. And they use considerably less than 10 kilowatt hours on average, based on 10,000 miles a year. So that's a load of electricity sitting in your EV doing nothing. Well, then they realised that it had become possible to sell it to the grid. But a bit of digging around, and they found out in the summer months, particularly on sunny, windy days, the grid gets so much renewable energy, it has an excess that it cannot use, and they have few, if any, places to store it. So what they do is they drop the price. And if they have absolutely loads of it, the price can turn negative. And that means rather than shut down a wind turbine or solar farm, they will actually pay someone to take the excess. See, now it's getting interesting. Well, in fact, the price of electricity that the grid pays, its generators varies dramatically throughout the day, and it's driven by demand. If there's little or no demand, price for electricity drops. If there's an excessive demand, the price shoots up. I hope you're starting to pull all the pieces together yourself. So if you have a 75 kilowatt hour battery in your EV plugged into the grid through your battery charger, why can't you buy it or get paid to store it when it is cheap or free and sell it back to the grid when the price rockets? Well, it actually has already been done, and that was more than 5 years ago. People did in fact do exactly that and made money out of it. So why isn't it everywhere today? Very good question. Obviously, there are complications. Now, without being condescending in any way, this is a very complex subject that even I don't fully understand. I will be researching this thoroughly and interviewing companies over the next few weeks that offer this service already. Yeah, there are some out there. And I will produce a much more technical and in-depth video in the future. So for now, I'm going to try and make this really simple so even I understand it. Most EVs are designed to accept electricity from the grid. Basically, it's a one-way system. Plug it in, the grid will charge your battery. Now, a few EV manufacturers have realised that the EV battery can be used a bit like a power wall or a power pack. Plug an inverter into your charging socket on the car and you can run some very low power devices. You maybe charge your laptop, you could plug in a mini camping kettle or coffee maker, maybe operate some power tools or run a pump to inflate your little dinghy when you get to the seaside instead of getting red in the mouth and facing a heart attack by blowing it up by mouth. Well, cars with this are already on sale. They include Nissan Leaf and the Aria. They include the Hyundai Ioniq 5, Kia EV6, BYD, Atto and Han, MG ZS, and most ID models. Oh, by the way, I just noticed my Tesla Model S is also on the list for V2G. So there's more on this a little bit later. But running those is very different to operating as an electricity generator and selling your electricity to the grid. These EVs are called V2L, or vehicle to load. They do not connect to the grid as such. You can do this while you're at the beach. In actual fact, there are 4 types of bidirectional charging. Bidirectional simply means forward and backwards, in and out, whichever way you want to look at it. V2L is the first, that's vehicle to load, so you can power some devices wherever you are in the country. You don't have to be plugged in anywhere. Well, next is V2V. V2V obviously is vehicle to vehicle. This allows you to release much more power so you can actually plug your EV with a full battery into another EV with a low or flat battery, and your EV will charge theirs. Well, it's absolutely brilliant for people with range anxiety, as once this is common, any passing car can stop and give you a boost if you run out. Well, next is vehicle to home, V2H. Your car, when connected to the charger, can send power back through the charger to run your home. It operates just like a power wall or power vault. So this takes us back to savings that we mentioned earlier. But the biggie is the 4th type, which is vehicle to grid, V2G. And it is this one that is specifically designed to export electricity into the grid, for which the grid, we've already established, will pay you. You may actually hear a 5th one mentioned, which is V2X, which is everything. It's all of the above. But at this stage, they're all treated rather separately. Now, new technology is rattling along at a really scary pace, so this next bit of information might already be out of date. The only EV with true bidirectional grid-capable charging at present is the Nissan Leaf. All Nissan Leafs, in fact, not just the modern ones. And the reason for that is the charger. The CHAdeMO socket and plug were designed to do vehicle to grid from scratch. Japanese were way out of the market 20 years ago. There are no others doing it, not even CCS2. Not yet. Yeah, I know they're working on it, and it will one day probably do it, But at present, to do full bidirectional charging, you need a CHAdeMO socket, and there are precious few EVs which have this, and most which do have CHAdeMO were not specially designed to do V2G. That honour rests with the humble Leaf. So that now gives us our first problem. If you want to do it at home, your home charger will have a type 1 or 2 plug, and you connect that into your type 1 or 2 socket on the car. See, Nissan Leaf always have 2 sockets, one CHAdeMO for DC and one type 1 or 2, depending on the age of the car, for AC. To get the full bidirectional charging, you need to use the CHAdeMO DC socket, and for that you need a CHAdeMO DC charger. Well, these are the ones you see out in the roads at public charging places. These cost thousands and thousands of pounds, and it's difficult for your home with only 23 kilowatts coming into it to provide you with a decent power outwards. Well, in time with mass production, if this does catch on, they will drop, but at present they're just a really silly price. Well, it seems that this Leaf is not so humble any longer, because in Japan and China, they've looked at this and they're now working on CHAdeMO version 3. That will allow 500 kilowatts DC charging and also full bidirectional charging for V2G. I just wonder, could this actually spell the end of CCS2? Actually wouldn't surprise me. So, roundup is in order. CHAdeMO sockets and plugs are designed from scratch to do full bidirectional charging. CCS2 can be adapted to do bidirectional charging, but at present only in the V2L power range. Smaller things. More and more manufacturers will include V2L in future, and models include Hyundai and Kia, Tesla, Volvo and Ford. It is getting very popular. Well, upgrading to V2G is a step further that requires a few internal changes to the EV and to the charger. Many existing EVs, even those with CHAdeMO, will never do V2G, and many home chargers can't do it. So this technology is not about to hit the streets in the next few weeks, but there is an unknown and critical reason why not only the EV manufacturers, but also the national grid will push flat out for this technology. And that is the huge growth in the adoption of EVs. Most cars, ICE and EVs, spend over 90% of each day sitting there, locked up, doing absolutely nothing. Most EVs spend the same amount of time during the day sitting there, locked up, but many of them are actually plugged in or can be plugged in either to your home charger or to a work charger. Well, last year in the UK we reached 1 million EVs on the roads, and that's projected to exceed 10 million by 2030. Most EVs have a battery size of well in excess of 50 kilowatt hours, so picture the scene. Some 10 million EVs are all plugged in everywhere they stop. This represents the equivalent of a massive power station which is instantly available, but one with a startling difference. No other electricity generator can take electricity from the grid at times of excess and store it. 10 million EVs can, and it has been roughly calculated that it could provide the short-term massive increase in demand that occurs several times a day, in the morning and lunchtime, and especially early evening when everyone arrives home and houses just come alive. Turn on lights, TVs, cookers, kettles, washing machines, and so on and so forth. V2G, with 10 million cars in the UK, can handle that. So the national grid will love this. The EV manufacturers will love this. It's a brand new feature. They can promote this wildly. And in fact, something like robo-taxis, which at some point will be on the way, they depend on this for an additional revenue stream when they're not working as part of the business model. if they're plugged into the grid buying and selling electricity, they're actually earning money even though they got no passengers in. And finally, not least, EV owners will love this because their EVs will provide them with a real, well worth having income. And additionally, it will mean that not only will they earn an income, but they will charge their EVs totally free of charge. And that is the future. Well, I'm off now to find out how my Model S has V2G already and how, if at all, I can use it. As always, when Dave takes it on, I do actually go out and try it for myself. I'll keep you informed of my progress, if any. And if you want to know more, watch out for my in-depth video. Well, thanks very much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please click the like button. And if you would, please subscribe. It makes such a difference to us as a new channel. If you click the bell icon, the notification, you'll be notified the next time we launch a video. And a massive, massive, massive thank you, last but not least, to our Patreon members. This side of the business is growing dramatically. We've had our most successful month ever, and thank you so much for your support for the channel. I'm Dave.